I'm going to be completely honest, and I've never felt that bad at a Celtic game since 2015. If you remember back to 2015, Celtic beat Malmo 3-2 at home on, I think it was the 19th of August. And then they went away on the 25th of August to play Malmo away, and I was at that game in Sweden, and I can remember being right behind the goals at that game. And Celtic get beat 2-0 and they didn't turn up that evening. Now, although the scoreline wasn't as bad as the other night against Atletico Madrid, the feeling was probably just as bad because we thought we were going to go through. That was the Champions League playoff back then. But Tuesday night was absolutely unacceptable. Anybody that says anything else is completely off their head. When I look back at the summer transfer window, there's only been one player that's come in, and that's been Lewis Palmer, that's made any kind of difference. There's a story going around this morning about the big Greek that left Celtic, was forced out. We'll talk about that in a minute. Alistair Johnson says that it's not acceptable. You know, when you've got a player like Callum McGregor, who's been there and done it all at Celtic over the years, and, you know, to the way that we got humiliated last year in the Champions League, to go out and have this done to us this year, it's absolutely. And let's not lie. I mean, that Atletico team, when you give a player, when you give a number 7 the space that we give their number 7, it's unbelievable. Anyway, let's get to what Celtic are saying about it. Alistair Johnson, I mean, people are saying that Celtic have been competitive this season in the Champions League. Results will tell us otherwise. Alistair Johnson says, don't take anyone away from it, then it's really a wasted night. No matter win or loss, you need to look back on every match and take some positive out it. Where was Kyogo? We're going to talk about the game. I mean, I know it is a couple of days later, and it's my first chance to really air my views on it. Alistair Johnson says, look, they have a really talented team. They have World Cup winners littered throughout the team, which is true. I mean, stadium, fantastic stadium. We'll talk about the stadium in a minute also, and facilities, and Scottish football is just a backwater. It is. It's terrible. And see people sitting in Scotland going, he's got beaten of the rest of it. 1, have you been in the Champions League lately? 2, do you do it on a regular basis? And 3, most teams in Scottish football get kicked out before we even start Europe. People in Scotland need to really have a think about what they want for Scottish football, because Scottish football right now, looking from the outside, is going one way, and that's down. Now, never mind the national team making the game. The national team has a manager that plays 5 at the back. Scottish football is going one direction, and it's going down quicker than the Titanic, I'm afraid. And that's just my honest opinion that I see from the outside of Scottish football. Now, I went to home and away games for the best part of 25 years. Now, when you look back over the last 20 years at Scottish football, it's getting worse. It is actually getting worse. Anyway, but back to the game. We played Feyenoord against 9 men. We looked more solid, said Alistair Johnson. Obviously, that was for a longer period. I think it made it a little too easy. We were too passive. We should have shown more as a group of 10 men the other night. We felt we could have dug our heels in more. Was that due to Brendan Rodgers and the way that he set up and that he wanted to keep 2 players up front? The Celtic defeat has obviously left us with 1 point in the foot of the group, which is absolutely terrible. There's absolutely no chances of us qualifying in this group. There's absolutely no chance. Alistair Johnson says, we need a response against Aberdeen this Sunday. Whoopie-doo! We beat some team in Scotland. That's not the answer. It's not the answer, Alistair Johnson. I'm sorry, it is not the answer. We can beat everyone. Brendan Rodgers can go on another run and we can be untouchable. But in Europe, it is disgusting. It's disgusting. And before Rangers fans come on and say, and what has Rangers really done in the last 20 years in Europe? Nada. Right? Nada. So fair enough, you get to a final and then you sack the manager that gets you to that final. Because you can't beat Celtic at home. Let's face it, Scottish football, and I tried to defend Scottish football as much as I can. And on a side note, hi to all my mates that I met over there, the Liverpool boys, boys from up north, and also the Glasgow boys, and Fife boys. There was too many to mention, but it was good catching up with you all. Alistair Johnson says we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to get the 3 points against Lazio. We give ourselves that chance. Yes, we did. We have put ourselves in a difficult position, Alistair Johnson says, but I don't see this scarring us. If it doesn't scare you, this kind of result, Alistair, but you need to look and try and take the positives and make sure you don't get humped like that again. Brendan Rodgers needs to change his tactics. Playing a team like that when he was still trying to push forward, at 3-0 was wrong. I'm sorry. And I mean, I've tried to defend Brendan as much as I can, but I said on the video after the game, the fault of this is not Brendan's, if you ask me personally. It's not Brendan's. He knew that we needed experience. But let's look back at last season. We knew we only needed 2 or 3 players to improve the team. That's as long as we didn't lose any players. We then went on to lose Carl Starfelt, Jota and Aaron Moy. The only one that's came in this season and made any difference, and let's face it, has been Lewis Palmer. Okay? We knew back then we needed a goalkeeper. Don't even get me started about Joe Hart. Joe Hart arguing with a ball boy in the first half was terrible. Absolutely terrible. Arguing with a kid behind the goals. Come on. A man of his... He lost it. He lost it the first half. He completely lost it, if you ask me. When you don't see... And the good thing about going to games is you don't see what's going on all around the pitch. And for me, he lost it. Completely lost it. Anyway, the fact that we look back to the transfer window was not the kind of transfer window that Celtic wanted. It's fine having 72 million in the bank, but let's face it, what does that do? The Celtic obviously know that we'll get into the Champions League next season, but after that, we're going to be in the wasteland of European football again. We cannot compete at that level. You cannot play against Ross County one week that sit back for 80 minutes. And Scottish football needs to have a good look at itself. If you want to play Celtic, and let's talk about the Sevco in this, we'll include them. If you want to play the likes of the top 2 in Scottish football, and you want to sit back for 90 minutes, and then you think that, oh yeah, we can qualify for Europe, then you're then going to go to Europe and you're just going to get tanked because you don't know how to play football. You don't know how to play football at the top level. You don't come out and attack Celtic. If you look back to the Martin O'Neill teams never sat back against Martin O'Neill. Teams had a go. When you look at the amount of, the break forwards that we had and goal-scoring goals that we had from attacks, that doesn't happen in Scottish football now. The way that Scottish football goes is, let's sit back in the box, let's sit back and we'll contain Celtic for 80 minutes. We'll contain Sevco for 80 minutes. Whoopie-doo. Anyway, let's move on. It was a tough night. It was embarrassing to lose 6 goals. It has to be a one-off. It's not going to be a one-off, let's face it. We're absolutely rank rotten when it comes to the Champions League. The board is more interested in getting the money in. Peter Lawwell is more interested in sitting beside his mates up in the UEFA and patting himself on the back that we've got all this money in the bank. There has to be a change at Celtic, right? And it doesn't start with the manager. It starts with the people at the top. It starts with like Peter Lawwell and that. They need to get back out the club and back out the door as fast. Never mind, but look at the way they financially run the club over the last so many years. Keeping some players, okay? Let's talk about a player that left Celtic. Just coming up for a year ago now. To leave the club, and what he classes as one of the biggest clubs in the world for the MLS, you would think that to leave Celtic, certain things had to go wrong. He said many of them went completely wrong. He said, I cannot lie, my relationship with the manager wasn't great. At the end of the day, we never had a specific fight, but he didn't trust me. I didn't feel wanted by the manager. I had to go. I never regretted a moment at Celtic, and I was sad to leave Celtic. I was living life there. I was loving life there, and I was like a god to the fans. My connection with the fans was unbelievable, but I had to make a decision. My last month at Celtic, I was suffering because some people at the club did not respect me. So I actually think they forced me out. And I know at the time I called on the big grumpy Greek because it was portrayed by Celtic that he was just being a menace and he wanted out the door. But it just shows you, Ange Postecoglou wasn't the saviour. He might have got us back onto winning tracks, but when you look at the comments from Giakoumakis and if you look at the ones from Matt O'Reilly at the beginning of the season, everything wasn't beautiful behind the scenes with Ange Postecoglou. Where was Kyogo the other night? Where was Kyogo? There's a pundit that said that, Kyogo Furuhashi looked as if he might be carrying this injury a bit more than what he's letting on. Or is it the fact, and it's been spoken about a lot down south, down in London, there's a lot of people saying that, Ange is on the verge of coming back for Kyogo to rescue him from Scottish football. Has Kyogo Furuhashi's agent been given the nod by Ange that he is going to come back in for him? It was hard. He hardly got any chance, but when you seen his movement off the ball, he wasn't really up to much in Spain. And I'm going to be honest with that. His movement wasn't that great at all. Is he carrying an injury, or has his head been turned? Tell me what you think in the comments. And when I go back to Malmo, back in 2015, one thing that didn't happen that night is the fans didn't leave early. I've never seen Celtic fans leave a European game early, and it was no wonder we left early, because the last thing you want is locked in half an hour after that game the other night. And I feel for everyone. There was quite a lot of fans still obviously there the next day, and it was interesting to see the difference in the police presence. Braga were obviously playing last night against Real Madrid, and the Braga fans were in the same square as Celtic fans the following day, but there was a lot less police presence. So that tells you all you need to know. I mean, you can tell they just class us as British. Sorry, but they just class us as British fans, and they class all British fans as the same, even though we're Scottish and we play in Scotland, and we're completely different from any hooliganism that goes on with English fans. Anyway, give me all the grief that you can on this channel. I don't care. It was interesting to go to that game. It was a fantastic stadium. It was clean. I've never been to a stadium that's so clean and so big. And what was really weird is the Spanish tend to take picnics with them. Anyway, on that note, let's have a live chat tonight, 6 p.m. Celtic Park time. So we'll talk about everything about the game. We'll talk about everything that went wrong with the game. We'll talk about where Celtic go from here, because let's face it, Celtic need a massive change. We do not need prospects anymore. Celtic either need to change the way that it's run and give us a little bit of a fighting chance, because let's face it, Brendan Rodgers is basically going into Europe with one hand tied behind his back. And on that note, try and have a fantastic day, Celtic fans all around the world.
Roll up to the party, roll up to the party, roll up to the